aside from trading for Matt Stafford and re-signing Leonard Floyd to a 4-year, $64 million deal, the Los Angeles Rams had a very quiet offseason, and really the only other thing of note was John Johnson, the veteran safety, went to the Browns, and if you kind of want to make this a note, you can. I don't really think it's a big deal, but Aaron Donald was involved in a bar altercation in which he was breaking up a fight, so really other than, trading for Matt Stafford and re-signing Leonard Floyd, this was a pretty quiet offseason for the Rams. Now, granted, they made the biggest trade of the offseason, and I do think trading 2 first-round picks and a quarterback for another quarterback is bigger than Julio Jones going to the Titans, so I do think the Rams, all in all, had the biggest move of the offseason. But the question for today's video is, can they win a Super Bowl in 2021? Now, we all know they got there a few years ago with a pretty different roster with Jared Goff, Todd Gurley, and the gang back in 2018, and as we know, Bill Belichick, the GOAT head coach, limited the offensive mastermind Sean McVay to 3 points on the biggest stage. But the question, as we said for today's video, is can they get back there? And before we dive into everything, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as each only take a second to do and it would be very much appreciated. Now let's begin. So when initially taking a look at the Rams schedule, they have a Week 11 bye and they play the AFC South, and the teams that they have to travel to in the AFC South are Houston and Indy. So it's not as bad as traveling to Indy and Tennessee, so they definitely did get a break there, or I mean it's just how the schedule plays out, because in 4 years again, then they will travel to Tennessee and Jacksonville. So if Tennessee and Jacksonville are good in 4 years, then that's going to be unfortunate for them. Anyways, back to this. Their schedule starts off against the Bears, and I do think that is going to be a win. And it's home, it's the opener for SoFi Stadium, and it is the first game where fans will fully be allowed. So I really don't see a way the Rams come out and lose this. And I do expect, given that it is on a Sunday night, for the crowd, for Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth and everybody on Twitter to be hyping the Rams up. And the Bears have a good defense, but again, given everything that's going to go on in that game, Matt Stafford going to be playing the Bears, a team he is very familiar with, I just expect the Rams to win, and that's, it's really all there is to it, right? Their next 4 games, though, are very tough after that. At Indy, versus the Bucs, versus the Cardinals, and at Seattle on Thursday night. So, there's no telling how these 4 games could go. Do I think they're going to go 0-4? No. But I definitely do not think they're going to go 4-0 on the other hand. If I had to guess, I would say they will probably be 3-2 or 4-1 through 5 games. And what I do want to say about Matt Stafford is he is a good quarterback. I am not sitting here saying he's awful, he's trash, he's whatever. I'm not saying that. But what I do want to say is Matt Stafford has not won a playoff game in his entire career, and I do think that is concerning to an extent. Now, yes, I am fully aware of the teams that he played on in Detroit, but I do think at some point, you kind of have to look above that and say, is he that good of a player? Because if he was, he surely would have won just a single playoff game in over a decade of work. So I do think Stafford is good, but I just don't think Stafford is going to be this, lo and behold, he's going to throw for 55 touchdowns and the Rams are going to go 17-0 and McVay is going to make him a Super Bowl MVP and a regular season MVP overnight, because I certainly do not think that is the case. Now, having said that about Matt Stafford, that does not mean he is just trash as a quarterback and he is a backup, because that obviously isn't the case either. He has multiple Pro Bowls and he is a very solid quarterback, but I just don't want this misconception to be strewed of, that I think just because they're going from Goff to Stafford that they're getting multiple Super Bowls in the future with the innovative mind of Sean McVay at the helm, because I don't think that is the case. But anyways, after that 3-2 or 4-1 start, they have at the Giants, versus the Lions, at the Texans, versus the Titans, and at San Francisco on Monday night before the bye. So needless to say, those next 5 games are very favorable, and there's a very real possibility this team starts out along the lines of 6-2 or 7-2 and maybe even 8-1 heading into that San Francisco game, which would obviously put the hype behind Stafford and the Rams at an all-time high. As barring something spectacular, I don't think they're going to lose to the Giants, Lions, or Texans, as they are better football teams than them, period. And obviously the Goff and Stafford it's not really a rivalry, but just because they were traded for each other, that's going to be hyped up all week. And, Lions fans, there's obviously no reason to boo Matt Stafford. And if there are any fans, then I don't think they're really considered fans of the Lions fan base. But what I'm saying is I do expect the Rams to win those 3 games. So at worst, I think they are 6-2 through 8 games, and then versus the Titans and at the 49ers. So we're talking about a team that could very easily be something along the lines of 9-2 heading into the bye, or 10-1 best case. I do think they are going to lose at least 1 in the first 11 games. But what I do want to say is this is a team that could look at going into the bye with a very strong record and then come off of the bye and play at Green Bay, a winnable game, versus the Jags and at the Cardinals on Monday night. This is, again, a team that could start out 12-2, something along these lines, heading into the final 4 games, which are versus Seattle, at Minnesota, at Baltimore, and versus San Francisco. Now, to be clear, that's not an easy way to end the year, and that could honestly really trick the Rams up heading into the playoffs, because that, easier stretch of game against the Lions, Giants, and Texans, it's going to make it a lot. Granted, it's going to be easier for them in the middle of the year, but having those 4 games, and really 5 games if you include the Cardinals on Monday night, there's 5-game stretch to end the year of at Arizona versus Seattle, at Minnesota, at Baltimore, and versus the 49ers. If you guys have been watching the channel, then I've said that I do think the NFC West teams will be very beat up by the time the playoffs roll around, and this is a prime example of why I think that. So what is going to be critical for the Rams is getting that number 1 seed to get that extra bye, because I truly do think if they don't get that bye week with these last 5 games, there's no way they're going to be able to play 4 straight games against top-notch playoff caliber teams and actually go win a Super Bowl in 2021. I don't think there's any way that they can do that unless they get the number 1 seed and have that extra bye week to prepare their bodies for the final 3 games of the year. But I do want to say there is a quick counterpoint to this. If the Rams are by some chance locked into the seed that they're going to get, whether that would be a 2 seed or 3 seed, or, in a wild card, whether it's going to be 5 through 7 and they are guaranteed a clinched playoff berth heading into week 18, then I would recommend resting the starters, because whether you are the 5, 6, or 7 seed, I'm going to go ahead and say in the 2021 playoffs, it's not going to make that big of a difference. Now, if you think, they would want to get the 5 seed if they don't win the division so they could go play the NFC East, well, I do think Dallas is going to be very good this year. Their offense is going to be loaded, and I do think they're going to win at least 10 games. And who's to say Washington couldn't also at least win 10 games with that defense and with Terry McLaurin and Ryan Fitzpatrick on the offense, mainly Terry McLaurin, but you get what I'm saying. So I do think the Rams, resting somehow, some way, whether it is in week 18 or being the number 1 seed, is going to be vital for their chances to make a long playoff run. And as we saw this year with the Bucs, they went 3 straight road games and then to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. So it's going to be critical for the Rams to get somehow, some way, rest somewhere. And what's going to benefit them is they do have a late bye, and then they play the Jags relatively quickly coming off of that bye. And not to say the Jags are going to be an easy game, but I do think the Rams will win that without too much stress. But the final couple games of the year, they're going to be essentially playoff games, and those are teams that are more than likely all going to go to the playoffs, and if they're not battle tested by then they never will be. And I would be genuinely shocked if they don't make the playoffs this year. And for what we're talking about, the big Super Bowl run, I think the Rams are going to have to, at least in one of those games, win comfortably so that their starters can rest at least a quarter, because a quarter here, a quarter there makes a big difference in the long run. And if Matt Stafford is going to go from no playoff wins to a Super Bowl ring, he's going to need to be rested at some point. Now, one thing that will benefit the Rams and Matt Stafford is something that he has never really had before in his career, and that is going to be a good run game. Sean McVay gets a lot of credit for being an offensive mastermind, as he should, but what I do want to say is Sean McVay conveying the run game is a lot better than what people realize, and Cam Akers is going to be the sole beneficiary of that. And I would be genuinely shocked if, the 17 game also helps, but I would be genuinely shocked if Cam Akers does not rush for 1,000 yards this year if he has at least 200 carries. He's going to be a very good back this year, and it's going to be something Matt Stafford is going to be extremely grateful for, as he may have had a 1,000-yard rusher once, but I know it's never been more than that, if he's even had it once. So it's going to be something that's going to benefit not only the Rams, but Matt Stafford. And what hurts Stafford sometimes is, he gets called Stat Padford on Twitter when people make fun of him just because of, how much numbers he has to put up just for the Lions to win a game. And that's going to benefit the Rams a lot in 2021. And I'm probably going to do a film breakdown on Stafford at some point. But back to this video, can the Rams win a Super Bowl? And the answer is yes, they can, because I do think from a roster talent standpoint wise, they are better than the Seahawks. I think they are. They're definitely better than the Cardinals, and the 49ers are a bit of a wild card, so if I had to pick a team to win the NFC West right now, by the way, the 49ers are a wild card because of the quarterback position, and if I had to pick a team to win the NFC West right now, I would pick the Rams. I thought the Rams were going to beat the Seahawks in the playoffs in the last year, and they did, and then they kind of gave the Packers a game, but it was expected to go in there with Jared Goff to the frozen tundra and lose. There was no shame in that. But now they upgraded the position, and I mean, they lost John Johnson, but that's not the complete sole end of the world, losing John Johnson to the Browns. But I do think the Rams can legitimately not only compete, but win the NFC. Now, do I think they will for sure? No, because there's a lot of variables between now and January, but they definitely have the talent to do so. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. We recently hit 24,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough for the support. I truly appreciate it, and until next time, have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.